Imagine that you're a manga publisher and I'm a writer. I come see you and tell you, hey, I have an idea for a story, and every couple chapter I will kill or change the protagonist and change the whole story because why not? You tell me, you're an idiot. How is a story supposed to maintain a fan base if it constantly changes protagonist and setting? That's stupid, and you throw me out of your office thinking I'm a fool. And then a couple years later, you'd look in a magazine and see that you missed an opportunity of a lifetime to be the publisher of one of the most iconic manga series of all time, Jojo's Bizzare Adventure. This scenario is not what happened to Araki in real life, by the way, it's just a joke. But when you take a step back and think about it, Jojo's story should never have worked. Killing a protagonist and massively changing the tone should be a death sentence for any manga or anime. Araki is just so goated that he somehow manages to write stories good enough that he maintains his fan base no matter what he writes. His art style, the bizarreness of his work, and his overall identity allowed him to kill multiple protagonists and drastically change the setting multiple times and still remain one of the most goated manga of all time. Unlike Jojo, most anime can never derivate from their niche. They trap themselves in a corner, and if they get out of that corner, their fan base doesn't follow them. Sword Art Online can never be anything else than a video game anime, for example. Tokyo Ghoul can never be anything else than an anime for hetero teenagers, and I don't know. My Dress Up Darling can never be anything else than an anime about dressing up. It's literally in the title, but somehow Jojo can go from edgy vampire fights to a serial killer in the sunny sunshine rainbow town storyline that has nothing to do with the main story in part 4, to a gang of cross-dressing Italian with ambiguous sexuality in part 5, to literally resetting your entire universe in part 6 and still remain on top. Araki can do whatever he wants with his story. He could make Jojo in space or another planet and people would still read it. He doesn't follow the same consistency that other shows need to remain relevant because people read and watch Jojo because it is Jojo. I don't know how else to explain this. It's quite bizarre, you could say. This goes to show that conventions are simply guidelines, not laws, and that if you're goated enough, people will follow your story. Now to continue, let's do a little Kahoot. Here's the question. What is something almost every anime has? The answer is a main protagonist. Yes, good job. Having a main protagonist in the story has been the norm since basically forever. We humans experience life from our own POV, so it's way easier for us to get emotionally attached to a single main character than a bunch of different ones. So it makes sense that having a single protagonist became the universal norm. But there is one anime that doesn't respect that rule, and this anime is called Durarara. I know it sounds like I just had a stroke, but I'm okay. But the thing I want to talk about here is that Durarara decentralizes its protagonist. It doesn't follow the adventure of an adventurer or a hero. It instead follows the story of a city, or more precisely, the district of Ikebukuro in Tokyo, Japan. Instead of telling the tale of a single character, it shows us the tale of the entire city. The story of Durarara follows multiple characters instead of just one. Characters like gang members, yakuzas, stalkers, obsessed lovers, manipulators, and other more, let's say, supernatural characters. The story constantly shifts perspective between its different characters, but instead of feeling overwhelming like in Stranger Things, for example, it paints the personality of the city. It makes the city feel like an entity, which makes it feel more alive than any individual character. Durarara is about identity, rumors, influence, crime, the chaos of human connection, and how stories spread through people. Every character brings a little piece of the puzzle which forms the real main character of Durarara, the district of Ikebukuro, and it makes the show feel real and different from its competitors. This show dared break the formula, and it took a gamble by choosing a literal city as a main protagonist, and it worked wonders in my opinion. Talking about wonder, the next anime I want to talk about is one that made so many things differently I couldn't make a whole video about it. This anime doesn't respect any rules, and I really mean any rules. Okay, I kinda spoiled it with that joke, but the anime I'm talking about is the Monogatari series. I don't even know where to start. Monogatari, in an age where everyone is brain dead and has zero attention span, doesn't have any flashy fights. It under-explains everything and it just does its own thing. To understand Monogatari, you have to pay 100% attention to the show. Some text flickers every couple seconds, and if you miss it, you miss key information. Every word of dialogue has importance, and the background is often a metaphor for the current situation. Talking about the background, every anime tries to make a believable, realistic background with buildings and people walking around, but Monogatari will have Araragi, the main character, speak while the sun is dying behind him, or hang out at a convenience store that just so happens to be on top of a waterfall, or in a building that somehow has a massive tree growing on top of it. Any regular anime watcher would be hella confused watching Monogatari for the first time. I sure was, but once you get used to it, you realize that this show is a piece of art, and even if it has some questionable moments, it is an absolutely beautiful anime. In a world where anime over-explains everything with flashbacks and narration...
Fuck you, Jimo the anime guy. You will learn at your depends that narration is a crucial part of watching anime, and that if I wasn't there, those simpletons with the media literacy of a rock wouldn't watch your videos to begin with. Only Gojo's infinity is as dense as you are, you profound idiot.
And uses flashy fights to maintain retention, it feels good watching an anime that respects your intelligence and uses words to tell you a story and gives you just enough explanation for the story to feel understandable but still satisfying on top of the beautiful visuals. Monogatari is not even an anime, it's like reading an animated book. I don't know how to explain this. It is different than regular animes in every aspect. It goes against everything the modern era stands for, and it still makes it work. I really wish I could make this anime justice right now, but it's not the type of thing you can understand with words, especially not mine. You have to watch it and experience it for yourself. Go watch Bakkei Monogatari right now. Anyways, that's it for Monogatari. I feel like the more I explain it, the more confusing it gets. So instead, let me ask you another question. Do any of you like detective books, like Sherlock Holmes, for example? In those books, we follow the detective, the hero, and we follow his quest of catching the evil mastermind bad guy and arresting him. This type of story makes us dislike the bad guy and love the hero because we follow the entire story through his perspective. Now, what if we took the same type of story but turned it around and we instead followed the story of the mastermind criminal that tries to escape the grasp of the detective and we see the story through his tainted perspective instead? Well, that's exactly what Death Note is. Death Note has its flaws, I'll give you that. It's not perfect, but I give credit where credit is due. Death Note did something new that interested people back then. If Death Note was a regular show, we'd follow the story of L, the world-renowned detective who tries to catch a very special criminal that kills people in mysterious ways. This sounds so dang generic, it sounds like a Detective Conan episode. This idea would have flopped immediately. But the reason why Death Note is so good is because it shows us the other POV. It shows us the villain's motivations. It forces us to get attached and cheer for him. We all think we have such a high moral compass, but Death Note got us all cheering for a mass murderer with God complex. In any other show, we'd all despise and hate Light, but since we follow his POV, it changes the whole dynamic of the show and makes us question our own moral and values. Death Note took a classic detective story and flipped it around to give us a masterpiece of a show that still has people debating who the bad guy really is, to this day. Yeah, so those were the 4 animes I wanted to talk about today, and I forgot to make a conclusion, so yeah, conclusion. Thanks, like and subscribe by the way, bye bye!